It is Tuesday Thoughts here on SDH Network and SDH AM. John here, you there. Thanks for dropping by. It is a packed show for a bunch of different reasons. We got leagues to talk about. We got games to talk about. We've got UCL knockouts. CONCACAF Champions is going on. KCD, we're going to find out where she be at 10 o'clock. Kacey White's going to join us to get us ready for Major League Soccer from her perspective. And I still have my notes from Coaching is Hard the last time she was here. So it'll be the first time that she joins us here in 2026. And we'll break down what's on her mind as she gets ready for MLS is back. I don't know if there's a hashtag yet or not, but that is the early rundown for the show, plus your thoughts. Thanks for hanging out with us as you always do, and we'll break it all down. But first, as I put my index finger in the air, it is time to bring in our special guest, Bat and Leadoff. And for this, we go to a fancy background because it's time to catch up on the U17s, and there is the man himself. It is Alex Aldaz. And Coach, congratulations. Welcome back. Are you breathing yet from the trip to St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
Morning, John. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure.
You are good. I have the styling and profiling still picture of you with the background of USA Soccer. So it is all good to go.
Yeah, we are back, and yeah, it was a great trip, and now preparing the debriefing process, and after a short breather, as you said, and get ready for the next thing. Yeah.
All right. So I'd like to raise my hand in the air and kind of start the debrief now. Is that okay? Can we go ahead and get like an early run in the debrief now? Is that okay? Get your reps in? Is that cool?
Let's jump right in. Yeah, love it.
All right. So when you normally do a debrief, let me start with this. When you do a debrief and it's not on a morning show, when you do a debrief and you're in that I guess that hermetically sealed glass encased conference room where no one can hear except everybody in there, and it's a glass table and chairs or Zoom or whatever, what are you talking about in the debrief first and foremost?
Great question, right? And in any type of process, you want to get all the stakeholders involved, right? So you have different kinds of debriefs because it starts with staff, and you have your internal one that would be like a technical staff. Then you have a more comprehensive one where you bring in the support staff. And then, of course, the most important bit, the players, right? How can we help them and keep progressing? And so we have debriefs with them, and that also takes place in the form of a Zoom call with good feedback and linking everything with the club, right? So depending on the space that they're in within their respective clubs, we try to connect the dots and give the club feedback. That way we can hopefully work together to accelerate each individual player's growth and development.
All right. So if you and I were to do it from, I guess, the coaching perspective, since I am long past my playing days, and I would be just kind of sitting in the stands or sitting looking at you the entire time, how would you gauge the overall performance in that 3-match sprint to get qualified for 2026?
Overall performance, I guess we're talking about a team, right? And instead of just the individual player. If you look at purely from objective, what was the objective is to qualify for the World Cup. So if it's just from the objective, I think you could check that mark off. And then you start to look at, based upon what we have spent time working on as a group, where we were and how much time we had to prepare. And so we always believe in optimism, right? And so did we take steps forward? In which way? Where do we want to keep optimizing and getting better, and eventually testing ourselves against new opposition? So it's a never-ending process, right? And in your head as a coach, you have a vision of what you want things to look like, right? And you're always working towards how can I get closer and closer to that, knowing that perfection doesn't exist, but how close what approach can we take to get there? And then also knowing that it's a completely different gig than being in a club environment where you can get on the grass every single day and really hammer things home. And so it's more about, in the next time that we get together, what do we really need to pick and choose to work on in our limited time to try to get closer to where we want to be.
So when you're in that limited time frame, how much of a challenge is it knowing that you've selected a group, and it's the group that you think is going to best accomplish the goal that you're setting out for? How much of a challenge is it for a coaching staff to cram for this test and then have to navigate match 1 to match 2 to match 3 to get to that overall goal of qualification? What's that like?
I know it seems like cramming. Yeah. The good thing is we do have time to prepare. So you besides going through training sessions and potential meetings that you would organize to enhance learning, and you really just you want to try to get really everybody on the same page, right? So it starts with language. It
Right.
starts with everybody speaking the same way, and what may be one thing to one kid in one club is a different thing to another kid. And then obviously that's just the language, but then there's a style of play. But fortunately, with a lot of these kids, we've had them since, not all of them, but a lot of them we've had for almost 18 months, starting back at U16. So they are familiar with the US way, which is a good thing. And it's just continuing to reinforce and try to take a lot of concepts and simplify them down to 2 or 3 things. So you look at what are 2 or 3 things that we want to be really good at with the ball, 2 or 3 things without the ball. And then you look at functional groups, right? So now maybe you're talking about a fullback and a wide forward, right? What are 2 or 3 things that you guys really need to be in sync with the ball, without the ball? And then you go down to the individual, and it's the same type of thing to make it digestible for them, right? Because it isn't club, and you can't talk about 20 things. For us, is we need to pick 2 or 3 things from the team, the functional group, and the individual, and really become proficient at those, or try to be.
Head coach of the U17s, Aldaz, breaking it all down with us from the big field trip. And I honestly did not know where St. Vincent and the Grenadines was when it came to looking at things geographically. I knew where it was, but I didn't know where it was, if that makes any sense. And so I'm going, man, you're like 2 islands away from the South American coast. That was a bit of a wake-up call for me in all of this. When we caught up with James Donaldson briefly when you were down there, he had mentioned that there were keywords, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, that you kind of gave the guys to sit there and attach to remind them about, okay, this is how we want you to play in a grand scheme of things. And so I thought that was really cool that you gave them those ideas to hang on to accomplish the goals. How did that come about as a part of your coaching DNA, where you sit there and it's like, okay, these are the tenets that I want you to hang on to, and it's just like little quick phrases and words to remind them about the day-to-day to accomplish what you want them to accomplish?
It's great. It's great, John, because it's something that we share with all our youth national teams, right? And if you think about a school and a curriculum where a kid would come in as a U14 with talent ID, and then you go all the way up to the U23s for the Olympic team. And if we're able to have those commonalities and that common language and vision of how our culture of who we want to be, and then what we want to look like as a team, it makes it easy for kids to progress through the YNT pathway. And so now, like what we referenced earlier, where we've been together for a certain amount of time, for them, and as you know, familiarity brings comfort. And when I am now comfortable, now I don't need to use mental energy to try to figure other things out, and they can be more present in the moment of whatever it is that the game is asking for them to execute on. And so it's for them. For us, it's trying to create more predictability amidst chaos, right? Which is what the game is a lot of times. And for them to know that in those moments where maybe it gets difficult, they can rely on one another to communicate with these common phrases and the common language itself.
One of those words that James mentioned was bravery. And I want to go back to the match 3 against the Dominican Republic. How brave were they in the match itself, which was a challenge, period. But then they had to be even more brave when they were down to 10 and had to hang on to the draw. How brave do you think they were?
Super proud of the kids. And I think we've all seen games in any sport at any level where when it gets tough and you see the team that's really under the gun, they crumble. And for the kids, it was a moment where they really showed tremendous bravery. So yeah, I don't think they could have done much more. So yeah, I thought they did great.
And when you discuss a match like that, I guess this goes into the discussions with players and Zoom calls when you're getting into your debriefs. Are there one or two things that you would discuss when it comes to the matchup against the Dominican Republic that might be separate and apart from the rest of the tournament that would be a part of the debrief as like key talking points?
We really try to focus going back to those roles and responsibilities.
Mhm.
And how did we execute and be process driven, because you can't control outcomes, right? It's just about how are we improving in what we set out to do every single day. And we do talk about, so James, if James referenced bravery, that's one of our cultural anchors, right? And the three that we have are brave, diverse, and relentless. And so we try to link game actions individually and functional groups and as our team to those, right? And we also have other anchors we call performance anchors, right? And that's togetherness, intensity, and communication. So yeah, we really just try to focus on how they reacted or how they dealt with certain situations within their roles and responsibility, not in things that they can't control.
One of the questions I'm sure that pops up with folks is they would look at, and this isn't just specific to the group that the US was in this tournament, but across the board in the competition itself. And they looked at some of the margins of victory. And I'm sure that there were some eyebrows raised by fans looking at, certain margins and certain clubs, and they were wondering, there's always that stereotypic question in their head about participation. Where do you think CONCACAF is right now as a region at the U17 level?
You see certain nations, John, making progress.
Mhm.
And that's a positive, because when you go into qualifiers, I remember the format when I first started working as an assistant with the federation, and we were with the O6s. So that would have been for the 2023 under 17 World Cup in Indonesia. And it was a tournament format, right? Where you have your classic group of four, and then you qualify and you go into either a round of 16 or a quarterfinals. And you have to progress to a certain stage in order to secure the berth, the qualification for the World Cup. And so now it's different, as you know, and it's just this group of four, and you got to win your group. And sometimes people question and they say, yeah, but you don't play Mexico, and yeah, and you don't play Canada or Costa Rica or Honduras or Panama. Um, but for us, I think it was fantastic that we had a game like the last one, right? Because that's what you want um, in every match. And a big thing that we need more of uh, week to week, and this is more for the club environments, is our kids. And you look at countries in CONMEBOL and UEFA, the kids that play in club every weekend, they're used to every single weekend. It's a battle, and it's an extremely difficult match. Um, and they're used to it, right? And that's what we need more of. That way, when we get into these types of matches, it's not a surprise. Whereas a lot of our kids are coming from an environment where, oh, we won 7-0 for four weeks in a row at MLS Next. That's not helping us to prepare. And so I think it was fantastic to get into a game like we did in the last one, and we just need more of those, because it'll become customary for us, and it'll be a zone that's not it'll be a comfort zone for us to have to compete like that every single time.
was getting out of your comfort? How different is it, I guess, in your comfort zone because of your time that you spent in the NCAA and at FC Dallas? Was this a move a couple of years ago when you got into U.S. soccer? Was this getting out of your comfort zone to try a new challenge? Where was this in your pathway of your coaching CV?
I had a great experience as an assistant coach with the federation, and it's a learning organization, and I grew so much every time I would go into a camp, and I felt challenged. And I thought when this opportunity came about, it was the proverbial no-brainer, and you have to go and keep testing and growing and developing always. And so super grateful and humbled for it, and every day is a blessing to attack the day and try to help these kids reach the MNT and their first team in their respective clubs.
Did you learn anything about yourself in this tournament?
I would say it was awesome managing a big team and getting everyone working together, not as if they didn't want to. Of course, everybody wanted to, but really giving everyone ownership and empowering and a sense of purpose. Of course, sticking to our culture. Just learn that when you're in these high performance environments, you can never take your eyes off. You can't relax. It's like all the time. You have to be ready, on and off the field. Every detail matters. There's no moment that you can take for granted. And so just staying sharp and keeping on top of things. I don't know if I learned anything about myself. I just, it was something I was suspecting, and it just confirmed that it's every single second, every single minute is important.
And reinforcement of ideas is just as important as learning things. One other question I had for you, and thanks for hanging out and batting leadoff here. Who's your favorite leadoff hitter, by the way? In baseball, who's your favorite leadoff guy?
Oh, I haven't watched baseball in a while.
Dude, I'm like a Rod Carew, Ricky Henderson type. That shows you how long it was that I was watching baseball.
You got me on that one.
It's all good. I wanted to ask about the U.S. way, because I know a lot of folks outside that may not necessarily watch U.S. soccer and national tournaments every single time out and on all the different age groups. They hear about the U.S. way, but they may not necessarily understand what that is as a process. How would you break down for someone who just drifts in to watch a tournament here and a tournament there? How would you break down what the U.S. way is and what it means to the greater picture?
It's our player development philosophy, I would say, and then also it's a big part of our cultural philosophy within our teams. To put it in a nutshell, in a short, concise answer, it's a development framework. Of course, we have documents and presentations which are lengthy and long, but it's really how we want to, as a federation, set out to work and partner with every single stakeholder within our ecosystem to try to help and let them know that we care, and from grassroots all the way up to professional. And so the intention is to make soccer the most played sport in our country, which, as you know, it's a tall order, but it's something that we strongly believe in. But then eventually to win a World Cup at the senior levels and at the youth levels, both men and women.
I'm looking forward to that one. That absolutely happens. I cannot thank you enough. Especially, have you got your sea legs back yet? Have you kind of gotten back to U.S. time and everything after the tournament?
Oh yeah, it was only an hour from Eastern time, so it wasn't a problem. And actually departing tomorrow to go help the 2010s. We have a futures camp in Fayetteville, so looking forward to helping the staff and that next generation of players.
And we can't wait for you to come back here to the Southern Crescent and get to those next stages. Cannot thank you enough for dropping by, especially the day before a travel day, coming back down here for the futures at the National Training Center. Alex Aldaz, head coach of the U17s. Thanks for coming in and batting leadoff for us this morning for the breakdown of what happened. And now you got to worry about Qatar in 9 months, which is going to be here before we know it.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. John, absolute pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much.
And you can come and crash at any time. If there's anything you want to vent your spleen about, you now have the keys to the kingdom, and you know where the garage door opener is. You can come in and crash at any time. It'll be good to catch up with you. Thanks again, Coach.
Thanks, John. Have a good one.
All right, there goes the head coach of the U17s and Alex Aldaz, and that was really cool. Once again, thanks to everybody at US Soccer and Aiden Trusty for helping us out with that one. So that was really cool that we got to have that piece of intel with the tournament, because we would be watching the U17s, kind of keeping an eye on things, catching up with James, all of those elements that are there in one piece. And I wanted to kind of get into a bit of a deep dive with Coach about what happened. And now, seriously, it is like November. It's going to be November in Qatar. November in Qatar is that. But that's like 8 months from now. And you think about this year in U.S. soccer, and you've got what's going on now. You have Major League Soccer starting, which in turn means that MLS Next Pro is kicking in. And you're going to be having camps, men's and women's side. She Believes is coming up. You have all of the training camps getting you ready for this cup that the world is chasing after in 26. You've got that as a part of the deal. And that's going to be here because at the end of March, you have the 2 friendlies that are going to be over at Atlanta Stadium. And I guess we have to kind of get into the DNA of referring to it like that now. It's for us, it's MBS. But until June, it's MBS. And then for that 6 weeks, we've got to refer to it as Atlanta Stadium. And I'll be the first person to sit here and say, I'm going to slip up and I'm going to call it MBS on the air probably. Or I might just do the wink, wink, nudge, nudge about Atlanta Stadium the entire time. And then you end up with the World Cup, which gets us to the end of July, which gets us into August and September and such, and all of the other leagues kicking back in and finishing up league play and getting all of that other material squared away. And then for the U17s, you got to get back into camp, and you're getting ready to go and chase after a World Cup in Qatar in November. So happy Thanksgiving. And so that's going to be really cool to continue to follow that going forward. And just so let's see, schedule. Do we have? So in the U17s, I want to see what's the next for the U17s in the rundown. So let me hit. Okay, so 2 wins and a draw, 19 goals. There's your qualifiers. Okay, 2026 schedule and results. Just those 3 matches so far. So nothing in the attached history going forward. So, and like I said, I can't thank Coach enough because, my brain will sit there and go one direction. I'm like the morning show version of Squirrel. And so for Coach to kind of hang on as we were going from topic to topic, very, very cool. And I can't thank them. And I cannot thank U.S. Soccer enough for helping out with that. And hopefully that will not be that'll be the first time in a long run of interviews that we get to look at a bunch of different coaches, bunch of different age groups, and all of that kind of thing. So thanks to U.S. Soccer for helping us out with that. And Coach is going to be back in Fayetteville down in the Southern Crescent tomorrow. So very, very cool stuff there. Morning, Abby. Morning, Alex. Morning, Ricky. And that's where we are. All right. So here is the rundown for the morning. Like I said, Kacey White's going to be joining us top of the hour. And so we're going to break down Coaching is Hard, and we're going to break down her thoughts on Major League Soccer as she gets ready for her weekend. We'll find out what her match is. And morning, David. And so we'll find out what's on Casey D's mind at 10 o'clock. And we'll break everything down, and we'll kind of start our work toward Major League Soccer. Just so you know, here's the rundown for those of you that may have missed. Okay, so we're catching up with Will Pelagic, the play-by-play voice of Charlotte FC, this afternoon. We'll go over Charlotte. We're going to air that tomorrow as a part of that show. Jessica Charman, who is going to St. Louis for the St. Louis City match with Charlotte, she's going to be calling that match. So she gets the first match of the season. So we're going to have Jess on tomorrow at 9:05. She's going to bat leadoff for a little bit. Then we're going to have the Will Pelagic interview in Charlotte. Hopefully the busiest man in the Northeast, Dylan Butler, can join us. And then we'll get you ready for the rest of the day because we'll have CONCACAF champions to talk about. We will have Champions League to talk about. We're going to preview that as well as a part of what's going on here. And so that is tomorrow morning. Red Clay returns at noon, and we catch up with GMC Prep, Jeff Davis, and Johns Creek with Kelly Bowler, the men's head coach. We're going to get the debrief on Creek Cup from him and get what he thought about the tournament in and of itself. 2 venues, 3 days, a boatload of teams, and now he's already started working on 27. So we're going to catch up with Kelly Bowler, and we're going to catch up with Brian Lawson. We're going to catch up with Dusty Jeanette. We're going to catch up with those guys tomorrow at noon in Red Clay. Then tomorrow afternoon and evening, it is going to be St. Pius and Brookwood on the network, 5:30, 7:30 from the Brookwood Community Stadium, Dave Hunter Athletic Complex. And St. Pius and Brookwood, early non-region action between heavyweights, and that will be out at Brookwood. We will all be there for that, Maddie, Jason, and I. And I'm efforting an interview where I won't be on the air because I think I'm going to be halftime and pregame and setting up the tables for both of those games. I might have to duck out and tape an interview because I'm efforting a guest who needs executive permission to come on and tape something. So if I get executive permission from his temporary bosses, then I will tape this interview and it will be a part of Thursday. Thursday, we catch up with Atlanta Amputee Soccer. Hopefully Thursday, we will catch up with this guest. I think Thursday leadoff, we're catching up with Lucas Panzica from Nashville and find out what the level of expectation is there, considering they're starting their CONCACAF Champions run against Atletico Ottawa. We got that to talk about. So Thursday is looking like it's going to be cram-jammed, and probably we're going to go to added time. So we'll find out what that looks like. Then, so it's going to be some combination of Lucas Panzica and a Nashville preview, possibly our surprise guest, Amputee Soccer, Atlanta Amputee Soccer, Nino and Nico. That's Thursday. Then Friday is the show of chaos. Like I said, I have turned the keys over for the guest wrangling to Apple TV and to Major League Soccer. It is okay. Here's the show. Here's the time. And our friend Kirk Reynolds at Major League Soccer, I've said, Kirk, line them up and we'll knock them down. We've done this in MLS Cup. We've done it for Decision Day. We might do it for MLS All-Star. We might. So we'll see what happens there. But we'll find out what it looks like with all of MLS Cup, and that is that's that particular Friday. So Friday 9:05 until 11-ish, 11 after 05, probably added time there too. It is the show of chaos. The voices of Apple TV discussing MLS's back on the network. So that's Friday. It is, I don't know who's coming. I may not know until they show up. So we'll find out what it looks like on Friday. And then Friday night, Maddie and I will be at Johnson Gainesville for Dalton and Johnson Gainesville. Just the one game, but it's Dalton and Johnson Gainesville. And they just like to play each other in heavyweights, and it's going to be a fun one once again. That'll be on the network. Maddie and I will be there for that, and that is Friday night. And then Saturday, it is the game, 3:30 pregame, 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app, 4:40, but if it's on Big FOX, it might be 4:55. So we'll see. But it's on Apple TV. It's on Big FOX. It is Atlanta and Cincinnati. Tonight, to circle back to things, it's a 2-hour Atlanta soccer tonight, 8 o'clock. And it's going to be me and Maddie and Abe and Jason and Mike and interviews and Jarrett. So it's going to be, you're going to hear from Chris Henderson, and you're going to hear from a couple of folks on the back line, but it's going to be me, Maddie, Jason, Mike, Abe, and Jarrett, breaking it all down for 2 hours at Atlanta Soccer Tonight, 92.9 The Game. and the Odyssey app. So that is the rundown of the week. Surprising no one that it's going to be this blanking busy. Oh, yeah, by the way. Shocking, not really a whole lot of folks considering the rumor mill and being what it is. Atlanta United signs Fafa Pico. Fafa Pico is in, and right now, according to the club, it is a 1+1. This season with an option for the next. 61-29 for Pico, 255 regular season and playoff appearances. And obviously, and this is interesting from Chris Henderson, Chief Soccer Officer, Sporting Director, quote, first met Fafa 2 decades ago at a clinic for the Haitian community while he was playing for Miami Fusion, meaning Handy, not Fafa. And so pace, quality, and joy for the game stood out. Followed his journey closely, worked to bring him to Inter Miami. And now after winning MLS Cup this past summer, it's special for me to welcome him to Atlanta United. Been a productive player in this league for a long time. Brings experience, professionalism, and a championship mentality to our group. For me, this signing is truly full circle. Thrilled we could make it happen, end quote. 28 appearances, all comps, 4 goals for Messi and friends last year. 24 in Vancouver, 10+8 in all comps, winning the CAN champ and getting into the playoffs. Prior to joining Vancouver, Philly, FCD, Houston, Nashville. 9 goals for Nashville in 23, 3 goals in Leagues Cup, double-digit goals in MLS with 11 and 21 with Houston, 10 in 2018 with Philly. Sparta Prague, FC St. Pauli in Bundesliga 2, youth career with in Italy with Cagliari Primavera before playing for the Rowdies and the Strikers. 16 caps with the Haitian national team, 1+4. Appearing in the CONCACAF Gold Cup, Nations League, FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Prior to committing to Haiti, represented the U.S. men's national team in 2016, 2 appearances before making his one-time switch. 34 years old. And so he signs as a free agent for the 26 season, option for 27 today. So that was one of the questions that we had coming into this last weekend of the season. Technically listed as a winger forward. So right now, here's your roster makeup, updated to this very second. We're still waiting on the transfer certificate and the P1 visa for Elias Baez, but he is in the barn, and so we can have this discussion. Keepers right now, Hibbert and Hoyos. And so once again, what it looks like is this the Ustari, Rocco Rios Novo approach where it is experienced keeper and young keeper, depending on the competition? Does it go, week to week? Does it go with, getting somebody in a rhythm? Is this Jaden Hibbert's? We'll all find out together. So defenders, Pedro Amador, Elias Baez, Baracol, DCQ. Once again, remember, DCQ's out for about another month. Matt Edwards, Stian Gregerson, Ronald Hernandez, Tomas Jakob, and Mihai, Caden Moore. And remember, with Caden Moore, he is on loan with Philly through the end of the calendar year. So technically you have 9 defenders listed, or 9 individuals listed as defenders. So that's what you're staring at with that. So that's who's listed as a defender. Tomas Jakob is listed as a defender. Midfield, Megi Alzate, Fortune, Adrian Gill, Saba, Alexi, Tristan, Santi Pita, Will Riley, Cooper Sanchez, Aiden Torres. Then you have forwards. You've got Luke Brennan listed as a forward. Ashton Gordon is listed as a forward, but once again, he's on loan with Chattanooga FC through the calendar year. And you have Latte Lot, Fafa Pico listed as a forward, and Cayman Togashi. So that experienced second striker / forward / winger now is filled with Fafa Pico. If there are any other questions, would it be wing or center back? That's what you're staring at right now. If you have any other questions, then that's what you would be thinking about here as we head into the first weekend of MLS is back. 2 keepers, 9 defenders, so that gives you 11. You have 11 midfielders, which gets you to 22, and then 26 if you include your forwards, with Ashton Gordon being transferred to Chattanooga FC on loan for the year. So that right now is your 26-man. That's your 26-man roster at the moment. And looking at the rumor mill in and of itself, Fafa Pico, once again, that gets flipped. That gets flipped over to an okey doke and a handshake, and that happened. So going back about a week, there are still some rumors that are out there, but Fafa Pico without Club FC is now joining Atlanta United. And when it comes to Atlanta United, I think that was the only rumor on the board, but there was a discussion and reports in South America involving Wallace Yan. And now Yan, who's out of favor at Flamengo, may leave to go play in Major League Soccer. And this is according to Ekram Konur, who has a boatload. He 200 plus thousand, close to 250,000 followers on the Twitters. He has NYCFC and Atlanta United interested. Now, according to Mundo Bola Flamengo and Red Bull Bragantino came close to finalizing an agreement for the sale of Wallace Yan. Flamengo claimed that Sao Paulo's club's management tried to change the previously agreed upon payment method. Formal proposal totaling €10 million, reportedly sent with installments different from those discussed verbally. Bragantino maintains it fulfilled the agreement. Bragantino intended to pay €5 million in 26, $5 million only in the following season. So half now, half later. Flamengo wanted to receive the amount in a shorter time frame, smaller installments, and conditions considered more favorable by Wallace Yan. Disagreement over the deadlines ended up cooling the negotiations. Mundo Bola Flamengo has learned that only Bragantino has made a formal offer. Recently, it was Jan's name was also linked to Zenit. And according to Mundo Bola Flamengo, that is incorrect. Big moment came in the Club World Cup when he scored against Chelsea. Flamengo had already completed the recent negotiation with Atlanta United, and that goes back to the Luis Araujo signing back in 23. So those two teams, they have a framework considering Atlanta United, Flamengo, and Luis Araujo. So that is where – so keep that in mind. It's looking more and more like a summer transaction for Wallace Yan, and that would be 21. I don't know if he would qualify as a U22. So let's see. Let me see if I can. And that rumor is not on the Transfermarkt rumor board, which is where I went to check things like Fafa Pico without club, et cetera, et cetera. So apparently it had gotten so bad with Jan and his club that he had said his goodbyes toward the end of January and in the window. And it was like, yeah, I'm out, I'm leaving. So he says his goodbyes in the locker room, deal falls through, and now he's got to go back. So he'd fallen out of favor, and you now have a situation where an individual who thought he was out is back in, and everybody's like, well, okay, well, we were kind of working without you, and we're fine, and you're looking at, and Konur is saying, and this was yesterday. So Atlanta United and NYC would be U22 slots, and Atlanta United has a U22 slot available. Wolves, Brentford, Everton monitoring. Konur is saying it's a $20 million plus potential summer battle in euros. Jan's current value is 6, according to Transfermarkt. So if somebody comes in with, say, 12 or 13, is that going to be enough for Flamengo? For a player who is out of favor and is a young winger. So keep an eye on this. Put that name and file it away. It's not something that is imminent. Conor is saying that it is a potential summer battle. So think of the summer window right now. Just kind of put this in like a bookmark and put it over here. So Wallace Jan Flamingo, put that over here for the moment. Unless somebody comes in, kicks the door in, and sits there and says, here you go, take my money, and then it's done. But right now, think of it as just that particular, that as a summer transaction. So that's kind of where things sit right now with that name, Wallace Jan. So keep an eye out. Keep an eye out on that. Any update on the River player? Not at the moment. I mean, initially it had been said that it was going to be a couple of weeks, and I'm sorry, I've seen Baez is San Lorenzo. Galarza Fonda. Let me double check and see if there is a Galarza Fonda update. And right now, it was initially that it was listed that the terms were not agreed to, and that the numbers that were being tossed around for Galarza Fonda, and yesterday, or 2 days ago, over the weekend, it was reported by Renzo Pantic, who is a sports reporter who is tied to River, 54,000 followers. Apparently, Matias Galarza Fonda wanted to keep the same salary at Atlanta United. Like I said, this is one report out of South America. So according to Pantic, that's why the transfer fell through, is that he wanted to keep the same salary at Atlanta United that he has currently at River. And so, what was the number? Okay, so Salary Sport had it estimated that Fonda earns around $563,000 at River Plate, and that's an approximate figure. So was it something that couldn't fit under the cap? That would be that would have been the question where Galarza Fonda is concerned. So would it have fit if he wanted to make $600,000-ish and be okay for a transfer? River rejected the offer. River considered it insufficient. Offer was a loan with an option to buy. And then you have the sources who are going, well, Galarza Fonda wanted to make 600. He's making about 600. He wants to work and he wants to continue to make 600 in Major League Soccer. So loan with an option to buy. River wasn't too keen on it. Other reports in South America are saying that the salary number was a bit too high at 600-ish, just under 600. You want to make the same thing up here that he was making down there, allegedly through this one report. So right now, loan with an option to buy and not considered insufficient is what the phraseology is. Considered insufficient. So loan option to buy considered insufficient, making 600. Would that have fit under the cap? I mean, that would have been a decent TAM layout. So proposed an amount that was considered insufficient. And so let me go really quickly on Lautaro Castiglione from Vermouth Deportivo. Galarza Fonda has fallen significantly out of favor with Gallardo to the point he's yet to play a single minute in the 26 Apertura. Yet River Plate rejected an offer for him. Criticized, and this is from Vermouth Deportivo in Argentina. Criticized for his poor performance in 25, being directly responsible for the last goal River conceded to be eliminated against Racing in the round of 16 in the Clausura, lost a lot of ground in Gallardo's consideration. Included in the squad, placed on the bench, he's yet to play a single minute in 5 matches River has played in 26. Olimpia, Cerro Porteño, Botafogo, Vélez Sarsfield explored the possibility of picking him up. None have made a formal offer. Atlanta United of MLS did make a concrete offer proposing a loan with an option to buy. However, River Plate rejected the deals. They intend to sell the player for a sum close to their initial investment of $5 million for 70% of the pass. So that's where Galarza Fonda is. So out of favor and not getting any minutes. They want to sell apparently for $5 million for 70% of the pass. So if you picked him up on the whole, it'd be about 6.5-ish. Atlanta United won a loan with an option to buy, probably with performance triggers and things like that. So that would be where Galarza Fonda is. He's not playing. River wants to sell him anywhere from $5 to $6.5 million. Atlanta wanted loan option to buy. River said no. And apparently he wants to make around $600,000 according to published reports in Argentina. So that's where Galarza Fonda is. So keep an eye on that one. Keep an eye on Wallace-Jan. And that's kind of where we are with Fafa Picault coming in the door. And once again, just to remind you of the salary figures, where it's with Jamal Tiare and with Fafa Picault. So Jamal, once again, last year, 700 base, guaranteed comp of 730. Fafa Picault. So if I put in an A and it doesn't have the accent mark, it freaks out. Okay. MLS players had Fafa's salary last year at 600 base, guaranteed compensation 642. So he's under, using last year's numbers, he's 90,000 under what your guaranteed compensation was for Jamal Tiare. And so now he is a part of your front line at Atlanta United. So Fafa Picault in a 1+1 signed this morning by Atlanta United. Chris Henderson has a lot of history, knows a lot of background with Fafa Picault, multiple locations. And so Picault is in. And this morning and Thursday, I believe, are the two availabilities at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground to catch up with folks getting ready for the matchup this weekend in Major League Soccer as we get ready because MLS is back. So that's your rundown of Galarza Fonda and any other futures. So like I said, Galarza Fonda, Wallace-Jan, keep your name on those two and there. And so that's your latest with those. All right. Now let's get into briefly. Now let's go CONCACAF champions. Let's go there and what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. We'll get into that here in just a sec. So CONCACAF champions tonight. It is the other side of the bracket. And so the left-hand side of the bracket was what we've been looking at over the last little while. And so now it is a chance to look at the right-hand side of the bracket and see how things are going to evolve there. Tonight, 2 matches on the board. The 8 o'clock is Nashville at Atletico Ottawa, which reminds me. And the Juice Box purveyors, they have both teams kind of listed as favorites tonight within the same range of one another. So my guess is they're kind of just like, well, we don't know, so we'll just go ahead and put a number up. Nashville's at a -169, draws a +316. Atletico Ottawa is a +363. And once again, remember, this is the first leg. I'm doing this just as a check to see if our friends at One Soccer are going to have another interesting evening in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada at TD Place. That's not bad. Okay, so that's not bad tonight. So right now, it's right now 31, anticipated high of 38, low tonight of 25. So it's not going to be too bad. So mostly cloudy, mostly cloudy, mostly cloudy. I need hourly. I don't need daily. So let me see here. Next 48 hours. Okay, so mostly cloudy. And by kickoff tonight, it's going to be mostly cloudy and in the low 30s. So it's not going to be too bad. So kickoff tonight, low 30s, mostly cloudy. So navigable conditions, 10% chance of rain and a wind west-southwest from 5 miles an hour. So should be fairly navigable for Nashville heading north tonight. Like I said, we'll catch up with Lucas Panzica batting leadoff on Thursday to find out what he thinks about tonight and what he thinks about the weekend. My guess is if you're BJ Callahan, who, has recently signed a contract extension in Nashville, you want to get business done early so you can rest some folks and be ready for the weekend. 10 o'clock, San Pedro Sula, LAFC, Real España. Real España is a veteran in this tournament. One of those certifiable pains in the you-know-whats. LAFC is a minus 167, draws a plus 285. Real España is a plus 412. So you want, if you're going to be up late, tonight, then catch a little bit of Real España and LAFC. Should be a hot crowd, great environment in San Pedro Sula for that one. And I'm not touching it because I just want to see, and this is my main problem, is that, A, I'm bad at juice boxes anyway, as evidenced by picks of the week on SOT. Then usually the inverse happens. So I enjoy the games too much is my problem. I enjoy the games too much to put juice boxes on them and to have any kind of meaning whatsoever. So that's kind of where I am with all of this. But Real España is going to be a great environment tonight, and I get wrapped up in the environment. And I would sit there and go, oh, Real España, great environment, when in reality we all know that LAFC is the better club. But that's why you don't play the games on paper, right? So tonight, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, Nashville at Atletico Ottawa. LAFC is at Real España in San Pedro Sula in Honduras. That's going to be a fun one. Looking forward to that. So because of that, being what it is, let's get into what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. And it is a way to look at what's going on today. being an Espanol has Libertadores doubleheader. What to watch, where to watch it is brought to you by Fanatiz, fntz.co/soccer down here. The link is important. It helps them, it helps us, and helps you by adding more matches to everything you're already watching. With Fanatiz, you get BN Sports, you get all the BNs. Home of AFCON, TEC, matches from Argentina, more leagues from across South America, all in one place. One subscription, one home. Fanatiz, fntz.co/soccer down here. Doubleheader Libertadores tonight, 5 o'clock and 7:30. BN and Espanol. Champions League is at 3. Dortmund and Atalanta on CBS Sports Network. 2 to NA has your doubleheader in Champions League, and they have the doubleheader in Champions Cup. So they've got the Triple C, and they've got Champions League. Galatasaray, Juve, Benfica, Real Madrid. Ooh, irony alert. And then, obviously, the matches in the Triple C tonight. Ottawa, Nashville at 8, Real España, LAFC at 10. Unimas has your simulcast of the matches at 12:45 and 3, and they've also got Real España, LAFC at 10. Fox O&E has the Triple C. Paramount Plus has League One, 2 matches available. League Two, 1 match available, and all 4 matches from the Champions League. VEEX has the 2 matches that are being basically simulcast by other folks, and the 2 matches in CONCACAF Champions Cup at 8 and 10. So Galatasaray, Juve, Benfica, Real Madrid are on VEEX. Unimas, 2 to NA. 3 places you can watch all those matches. And that is, once again, a busy day across the board. And get you into tonight, which kind of clears the table out a little bit for CONCACAF. And actually clears the table so you can listen to us on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app at 10 o'clock for our season preview of Atlanta United on Atlanta Soccer Tonight with Jason, me, Maddie, Abe, Mike, Jarrett. Cast 1,000 coming up at 8 o'clock tonight, and it'll be blast to hang out with all of them and get you ready for the season. I've got the rundown. I've got to get all my notes together for that particular matchup. So it's going to be fun to find out what's going on with Atlanta United, what everybody else thinks, what we think about Major League Soccer and Eastern Conference and friends and foes and all that kind of stuff. Okay, it is that time. And so she is in her new time slot, by the way. And it's time to find out what it was like in the offseason. And this is someone who has done a boatload of traveling. She has done a boatload of traveling. We got to find out what it was like for her to travel because Italy was a part of it. England was a part of it. and a lot of England was a part of it, actually. She was watching a lot of matches because I saw the pictures on social media. She had busy times. I'd like to know what Owen thought about all of this. It is the return of Kacey D. So, Kacey D, welcome back, my friend.
Hi, how are you?
Questions for you. You had the busy off season. You decided to take time for yourself, which is unheard of in this industry. You wanted to actually have time to spend time with friends and family. What is the matter with you?
Go figure, right? That doesn't happen too often. And I finally said, you know what? I need a little recharge. And we go so hard all year that it was nice to do a little bit of everything with myself, with Owen, family. It was awesome. It was a good off season.
Okay, so I don't know if I can necessarily pin this down with you and your dad, but what was your favorite venue to visit with your dad when you guys went overseas?
It has to be Anfield, and I have to say this because we're not bandwagon Liverpool fans. I've been a Liverpool fan since I can remember, and since I was a little kid, my dad as well. But this was a bit of a bucket list trip. My dad and I have always talked about it. He's been to England over 40 years ago. I've been to England. I've been to EPL games. He's never been to one in the UK.
Okay.
And so, as you mentioned, our schedule's crazy. So it's always around my schedule. It's always changing. We've never been able to do this trip. So we finally put it on the calendar. We got there. During You'll Never Walk Alone, I look over, he looks over, and we're both like crying. Like, it was just an amazing situation. Whether you're a Liverpool fan or not, that moment at Anfield's pretty insane.
Yep.
But yeah, meant a lot. So a typical answer of saying Anfield, but more for sentimental reasons.
No, and it was very cool as you graciously on your social media had all of your pictures as you were going along in your journeys and everything. So, stuff for a lifetime. Write a book. I think write a book about the whole thing.
I should. It was wonderful, and Wrexham was a close second. I'll tell you that. That was a lot of fun too. But it definitely beats Liverpool.
So did you see Ryan Reynolds and Rob Mack? Did you see them? Were they there?
So one of my UEFA A instructors played for Wrexham in the 80s, and I met up with him before and after. And before we went into the stadium, he had to go in first. He sent me a picture like 3 minutes later with Ryan Reynolds. And I was like, is he there? And I was like, that is not a good friend, not bringing me in to meet Ryan Reynolds. So he was there. I did not meet him. I tricked a few people and said I did. But they realized the picture I sent them was off social media. So they knew it wasn't me. But I was there. Not Rob. I didn't see Rob, but we saw Ryan Reynolds walking around.
Okay, so is the racecourse ground all it's cracked up to be?
It's pretty cool, and they're doing so much work. They're about to add like 8,000 stands or 8,000 person stand on one of the sides. It's still intimate, which is nice. I like, but it was full and it was rocking, which was great.
Okay, two big things that I wanted to get in with our discussion this week. Obviously, we'll find out where you are this weekend when it comes to MLS is back. But I still have my notes right here from January 13th.
Oh, man, that's way back.
Where we got into the discussion of coaching is hard. And we have yet to get into this particular discussion, but I figure going into the MLS season, it probably would not be a bad idea to break down why coaching is hard and the idea about up-and-coming coaches and who gets it and portaling and the NIL and benefits and all this kind of stuff. So why, he asks, why is coaching hard these days?
I don't know if it's just these days, but in general, coaching, in my opinion, is so incredibly nuanced. It's not just about being a tactical brain. It's not just about being a people manager. It's not about just managing the people below you, the people above you. Like, it's when you do all of those things and when you choose to play certain roles and still do that from an authentic spirit. And so much of coaching, in my opinion, is decision making. It's not just how are we going to train on a Tuesday or a match day -2, or how are we going to line up against this team and scouting them and seeing what they're like. It's when do you do all of that? When do you introduce those concepts to your team? When do you put an arm around the shoulder? When are you tough on someone? Like, it goes from team to individual, and the best managers, in my opinion, make those decisions at the right time. And it's hard to pinpoint when that is. I've sat in that seat, and sometimes you just have to trust your instinct of knowing people, knowing players, and understanding the game and the experiences that you have had in the past and drawing on them.
Who are some of the best at it these days?
Well, one of the best right now that I think is all in the media is Emma Hayes. And the reason is because the tactical piece of what she knows, the experience that she has, is not in question. We talk about non-negotiables like in cultures, and I think with coaches at the highest level, that part almost has to be a non-negotiable. Like, you need to know the game, you need to have the experience, you need to understand the tactics. It's the people managing, and she gets so much applause for knowing when there needs to be an off day. As simple as that sounds, you're managing people at the end of the day for high performance. And she's one of those people that if you talk to players, they will say she just has a pulse. And sometimes that pulse can be natural of just knowing people, but also the years of experience of potentially getting it right and it working, but also it getting it wrong and realizing why and then learning from that.
How hard is it to get an A license?
It's pretty hard. It's a very in-depth thing that you have to go through to be able to do it. Obviously, you have licenses before that you have to do and waiting periods, but then you get to the actual process of the A license. I would say you're prepared at that point to go to it, or you wouldn't be accepted onto it. But there's a lot of work that you have to go through in order to be able to do that.
So it's A license, B license, and this is in descending order. Obviously, A is the top, but so
Right.
it's A license, B license, C license.
Yes, and you've got your pro license above the A. To be fair, and in the United States, there's even lower licensings down to grassroots of the local coach that wants to coach and needs to get some information on 7v7 for development and up to 11v11. So, as a pro player, I was able to start a little bit higher, which was nice having that background, but still going through that gauntlet of courses can be incredibly difficult. But each one has its place in your learning.
Okay, so A license being the grand exalted poobah. Where does the B license help you in the A, and where does the C help you with the B, which helps you with the A?
I think it depends on whether you're talking about the US licenses or UEFA, but there are some similarities there. More in the C and the B is a little bit more practical. It's on the field, understanding how to put sessions together, stoppages, ball running time, like how do you increase development? So you're more hands-on type of coaching. And yes, you talk philosophically and you talk tactically and you speak about managing players, but it is more that you're tested on your on-field coaching presence, your information you're giving, and then the result that comes out from that. So you do plan, periodization across 9 months of how to help players develop, all those things. Where when you get to the A license, like we were talking about with like an Emma Hayes, you should already know that they're good on-field coaches and that they're elite at what they do. Now it's about how do you manage the entire performance environment, which I've talked about it in the past with you. How do you manage your staff? How do you manage the ownership? How do you work with players, individual development plans? So it's a little bit more nuanced. And then you add more scouting, more opposition scouting, and how do you plan for games on the weekend?
That's crazy. I don't know how you guys do it. I really don't.
I could have kept going, but I'm like, I could talk about this all day. So
Look. Well, we got time and space, Case. I mean, that's you can go as long as you want, because when you open a door, it's for me, it's like, okay, because a lot of folks may hear the idea. The fan may sit there and hear the idea, and some of us in the media may sit there and say, oh, well, they've got their A license, or they've got their B license, and you kind of get lost in the alphabet soup as to, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that she can that particular coach can do certain things and they can't do others. It's just folks get lost in that ABC and pro bit, and that's why I wanted to ask what the differences were.
And I think it's really important that when I've looked at coaching education, for me, it was never about checking the box. Oh, so I can say I have X license. It was always about just trying to learn and get better. So much of the licensing as well is the people you surround yourself with in the licensing and what you can take from that. I walked into my B course in Wales and Michael Ballack was sat next to me. And I was like in absolute shock. I was like, because we don't get a roster before we show up. And Dante from Nice was there and all these players. And I was like, I don't know if they're the greatest coach in the world or not the greatest coach, but they have experience that I don't have. I have experience that they don't have, and we can collaborate and we can share. And it doesn't mean you're going to be a world-class coach just because you can say you have a license, but it sure doesn't hurt to do everything you can to continue to grow, put yourself in a scenario to learn from people. And in Wales, I had known years before, Thierry Henry came through there. Roberto Martinez had come through the pathway. I knew there was a proven pathway of coaches that had been really successful that had come through their education system.
Did Michael Ballack cheat off of your answers?
Obviously. I mean, I don't blame him.
That's crazy. You go walking into a room and Michael Ballack is sitting there.
It is. But he was just another person doing a course at that point. And I truly mean that. Of course, it's Michael Ballack, but he didn't act any different from any of us. He was hanging out after, and he was nervous going onto the field. And he's like, I've only coached for 6 months. I'm trying to learn as well. And so it was really interesting just to see everyone on that level playing field.
Crazy. Kacey D, where should she be? She'd be at home because she's getting ready for match week 1 of MLS is back. And
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Are we at liberty to divulge your location for match week 1 yet?
Yes, we are. I will be in Houston for the Houston Dynamo Chicago Fire game.
Okay. And who's in the booth with you?
Christian Miles.
Okay, so it is Christian Miles and Kacey D with that Hell in a Shell for Houston and Chicago. We'll get specifically into that matchup in a bit, but let's kind of take a peek at 26 in general. In all of your homework, getting ready for this season, what are some of your main points that you're keeping an eye on as we get into this season here, where there's this World Cup thing that's coming up in less than 120 days and balancing all of that? But what are some of the big things that you're looking at here at the beginning of the season?
There's a couple things. One thing, this is just what I always look at. I think most fans are sort of like this. I want to see how the champion starts the next season. I always think that's such an interesting dynamic, not only because you've just won. So is the hunger still there, and how are they going to gel together, or has it been done? So it's a little bit of a sleepy start. Then you have the players that have gone out, the players that are coming in. So I think watching Inter Miami is going to be something that's really intriguing for fans, for myself. And they start with LAFC, which unbelievable first game. That'll be a lot of fun. So 1, I think that will be very exciting. 2, we talked about coaching, managing a World Cup break. Wow. Incredibly hard. You have to break down the season in a different way than you do in a normal MLS season. And you have to manage stars going in and out. You have to manage them after a World Cup, which is always interesting.
And obviously, you're looking at Messi and friends, and they signed Berterame. They brought him in. Rodrigo de Paul's official as a DP. You have players retiring, but it is reloading at Messi and friends. And for them, they are still the ones that want to challenge the rest of the league when it comes to cap navigation and what you can do and who you can bring in and all this kind of stuff. And, hey, do you want to play with Lionel Messi? And Herman Berterame's like, well, yeah. I mean, that's a dumb question.
I do,
so,
obviously.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And so you wonder about the muscle injury that Messi suffered in their preseason tour. There is a discussion right now as to whether or not he'll be available in match day 1 at the LA Coliseum. And this was something that Javier Mascherano has had to navigate. and he did a pretty good job of that last year, is dudes who are north of 30, north of 35, you got to make sure that they're okay. And so, riding and making sure you got the gas and the clutch with Lionel Messi is going to be one of those things that you got to monitor, because yes, he is in fact human.
It is something to monitor, and you can look at it both ways of, can you continue doing that because you've already done it, you've already been successful, or will there be different challenges this year? I think conversations together where you're talking about managing players and you're also talking about the World Cup, not only just age comes into that factor, but across all the teams in the MLS, it is about managing players that have gone in, either left for the World Cup, maybe didn't play a lot. Like, how do you manage them coming back mentally and physically? Those that did play a lot in the World Cup, how do you manage that? The players that aren't at the World Cup, like, there's just so many different pieces of mental and physical management that are going to come into play that I do think will affect the Major League Soccer season. And we all know, like, what it comes down to at the end is goal differential, points to get into the MLS playoffs. Little things matter. And while one or two games may not seem to matter in totality, coaches can look back at that and say, oh, we could have managed that a little bit better coming out of the World Cup, going into the World Cup, whatever that may be.
What other talking points and what other stuff is running around in your brain in addition to Inter Miami and what they did in 25 heading into 26? What are some of your other headlines?
Well, this will lead a little bit more into my game, but I love what Chicago Fire does on the attacking side. The big question mark is, how many goals are they going to give up in 2026? Because they were leaking a lot of goals, but a lot of that has to do with their style of play. I don't necessarily believe that it's defenders, goalkeeping, their back line in totality. It's the way they attack. And so much of the nuance of being really good defensively is what you look like when you have the ball in case things go wrong. And so I'll be interested to see what they do, because I don't see a style of play change. I hope there's not one. I love the attacking style. In fact, everywhere I've coached, I've actually been known as the coach that would rather win 4-3 than 1-0, because I'd rather my players just absolutely go for it. So I support this. But the question mark is, can they make their lives a tad easier without giving up that attacking dynamic play that we saw in 2025?
All right, let's take it a team at a time. Chicago out this past season. You're looking at Chase Gasper, who retired. You're looking at Barlow, Dowd, Kwame, Gutierrez transferred, Koutsias, Reynolds, Kellen Acosta, and Sam Williams, who was loaned to Colorado Springs this past week, a couple days ago. Inbound, Saletros, Andre Franco, Mbokazi from South Africa, Jason Shukaluk, who I'm intrigued by because of how prolific a scorer he was in MLS Next Pro. How does that translate, and what are his minutes going to be looking like, and when he has to prove himself to Greg Berhalter on the first team level? Robin Lod, Josh Cohen, Mari Glasgow, Dithjane, and your DPs, Jonathan Bamba, Hugo Kuipers. We know what Hugo Kuipers can bring to the table. And they've gone 2-4. They have Barroso, Jada Avila, Mbokazi, and Dithjane as their 4 U22. So they've gone 2-4 with their model, with Bamba and Kuipers as their DPs.
Great rundown there, by the way. And this is what's
thanks to our friends at Soccer America, by the way.
And there you go. Hey, but you repeated it very well. So Gutierrez, to me, and everyone, like, what a year he had. So, like, that loss is incredibly huge, in my opinion. Not only from a contribution perspective, but like his footballing brain, I just love to see. And I think he did a lot of things that didn't even just show up on the stat sheet. We know what he can do from a stat perspective. So I think that loss is really big. We all know that. That's not a shocker for me to say that. But you've got Lud coming in, who I think is going to play an incredibly big role. You bring up Shukaluk, like, I am very interested to see that as well, because it's one thing to be that prolific of goal scoring at the MLS Next Pro level. It's, can you do it at the first team level? I think we have to be really careful with it as fans, media, coaches, everyone, is like, the expectation on the first year of a player like that. The reality is it's a first year player. And so giving him the time to be able to adapt, because that could be what might come in half a year, 2 years, whatever it may be, but you have to manage those expectations. But I do think it'll be interesting to see what kind of minutes he can provide. Mbokazi coming in as a defender, I think that's another player that could be really important to their back line, and really shoring things up a little bit there, because Gutman's going to go, they're going to send outside backs forward. So how they look behind the ball is going to be really important.
Yeah, and I mean, but it's all about, come on, Case. It is all about instant expectations. We need to have him at 125% of capacity now. He has to score 27 goals. He has to better his MLS Pro output. It has to be immediate under Greg Berhalter. Come on now.
This is where people probably get frustrated with me, because I'm such a coach mentality. I'm so far from my playing days. And and I also just don't have that this has to happen now perspective, especially with attacking players. For better or worse, that coaches in me of what is real. And that doesn't mean you don't push someone like that to have that sort of impact. And I'm not trying to limit him. It can happen.
No.
And I will be the first to say that's amazing. But I think that, a player like that, especially goal scorers are a different breed. They're already looking at a full 90-minute game and going, I played terrible. And they could have had 3 assists, or they could have drawn so much attention that everyone else was open. And they're like, I didn't score. I didn't play well. I've dealt with those players and looked at them like they had 4 heads. But you also don't want that mentality to change. So it's how is that managed? Greg Berhalter obviously can manage that type of personality, and he does that. But that can be hard.
Houston. And I mentioned Houston, and literally, I don't know if they get a cut rate for everybody that wanders into the post office and files a change of address kit with the U.S. Postal Service. Here's their offseason, and I might have to go to toes here. Out, and it's once again thanks to our friends at Soccer America, and this is outbound. Honor Awadesu, Barthlow, Duenas, Playoff Franco Escobar, Halliday, Kowalczyk, Damian Lowe, Sergio Santos, Gabe Siegel, Daniel Steres, Andrew Tarbell, Junior Urso, Kieran Sargent, Brooklyn Reigns, Exxon Arzu, Toyosi Olasanya, and Sebastian Rodriguez. 18 out for Houston. I haven't even gotten to the end yet. 18 players out for Houston. This is chaos.
Well, now you can understand how hard it was for me to prep for this game. I was doing my boards, and I'm like, who is left? Who's left? This was in January, and I'm like, this is too early to do any of my player boards for this game yet. So
inbound, Logan Urban, a homegrown, Reese Miller, and a homegrown. Then they bring in Agustin Buzat from Vélez Sarsfield, Lucas Halter from Botafogo, and Botafogo, I'm quite sure, was happy to get funds for that, considering they need them. Guilherme from Santos, Ache, and that's kind of like a little side plot that I want to get into. Nick Marcanic, everybody who followed him in USL Championship in Charleston knows what he can do on the USL Championship level, coming back from CD Castillon, Franco Negri, and Mateus Bogusz. So inbound, you look at the 2 headliners for me, obviously, are Bogusz, and they spent a boatload of money to bring him back from Cruz Azul, and then Ache, Hector Herrera. I thought that was interesting considering how that relationship ended the first time, but you're bringing back Ache and Mari Bogusz there. I thought that was interesting.
It is. We love a good comeback story. And I do think it's kind of interesting that that's happened. I don't necessarily know if anyone expected that to happen, but we're all human beings. Things happen, and there's relationships there. So it's a good opportunity for Herrera to come back in. It might be a different role. It probably will be a different role in a lot of ways, but the experience and the on-field credibility that he has in his play, I think will be interesting to watch. So we'll keep an eye on that one for sure. Bogusz could be a difference maker for this team. Absolutely. And so having a bit of a harder year away from MLS, coming back, you would expect he's going to be hungry. You talk about all the players out. Well, a team that didn't finish where they wanted to finish, that was lower in the standings in the West, I'm actually not that surprised. Until you started counting them, okay, that made me a little surprised. I didn't realize how many there were,
Yeah.
but when you see a lot of that changeover, it sends a message. And I think it sends a message to players, not only that are already there and that stayed, but the players coming in that you got to perform. And we have high expectations. And as a player, I was never afraid of that. I didn't like when I didn't know what my expectation was or I thought I could coast. I needed to know. And I think they've sent a clear message there.
And I think they still have to buy somebody down before rosters are released, because right now their premium spots, they've got 4 listed as DPs. And unless there's a rule change I don't know about, you're only supposed to have 3. So right now they've got 4 and 3. Ponce, Guillerme, Andre Linger, and Bogish are listed as DPs. And then your U22s, Lawrence Anali, Nelson Quinones, Jack McGlynn. I think that you mentioned, we talk about Jack McGlynn, and I think that McGlynn kind of needed a place to spread his wings out a little bit. And I think that in Philly, you're in that system in Philadelphia where it is kick or be kicked. You're bogging things down. You're frustrating an opponent. And I think that getting this change of address for Jack McGlynn has helped him out. And it's even gotten him some looks from Mauricio Pochettino on the national team level in some of those in-between camps. So I think that looking at someone like Jack McGlynn and what he's been able to do in Houston, that's another guy that I'm going to be sitting there and looking at in 26.
Completely agree. Every team that you're a part of, every club, your role might be a little bit different, especially when you're in a part of your career establishing how far can you go. And sometimes the fit is really important. And I agree with you. I think that he is a centerpiece. He is a focal piece. And it's just about those players around him now. But it allows him to really flourish in this type of environment where he is someone that they're going to rely on and continue to rely on to be able to take the steps they need to under Ben Olsen.
How much studying have you done so far getting ready for Fire and Dynamo? How many pages of notes do you have?
So the beginning of the year is really interesting. I'll let you in on some insider information. Like, I don't feel, besides off-season transactions and knowing a bit of how they played last year and what they kind of went through in the 2025 season, for my role, the first week or two is really just about calling what I see. And you can argue that that's my role throughout an entire year, but you always have more context as the season goes on. And with these teams not fully releasing rosters, with not knowing all the information you want to know from preseason games and things like that, you can get bogged down with trying to find information that's just simply not out there. So it's really about getting to know the players. It's really about having some context from last year. And then it's a little bit of what do I expect and what am I thinking is going to happen? And that's the part that I kind of wait until Thursday, Friday to get into, because I like to talk to the coaches. So we have our coaches calls coming up on Thursday, and I am so interested to hear how both of these coaches think preseason went, because we can all look from the outside and say, okay, here's what it looks like, but it'll be interesting to see what their expectations are.
Especially when you look at goals allowed, goals scored, wins, losses, competition, you get bogged down in that idea. And instead of focusing on wins and losses, coaches are looking at principles. They're looking at application. They're looking at, okay, who fits well with whom? What about these new guys? What new guys work well there, instead of the fact that it was a 3-3 crazy pants match or a 5-1 blowout or something like that. They're not focused on those numbers that show up in the transaction page. They're looking at what's going on in front of them.
They certainly are. And one of the worst things you can almost ask a coach at this point is like, so last year, they're like, no. They are like, I don't even want to think about that. They do, but they don't want to address it with media or with broadcasters, because they have spent most likely 6 to 8 weeks preaching, who are we now? And okay, here's some things we can draw from. Here's our principles, but it's just teaching, and getting ready to go, and then unleashing your team. And so you're right. It is really a focus of what are our principles going to be, hammering those in, so when you get under pressure, they still come out.
KCD and Christian Miles, they are going to be at Hell in a Shell for match week number 1, and it is going to be Chicago Fire, Houston Dynamo. And I'm trying to find the juice boxes quickly in this one, because I imagine there are going to be a lot of goals scored. And so if you find a total, take the over. Currently, right now, it's an 8:40 start, but Houston is a slight favorite over Chicago Fire, and your draw is north of plus 250. Great to have you back. I'm glad you got the time off, and I'm glad you got to spend time with your dad traversing England and all points in between.
Thank you. It's good to be back, though. I'm excited to get the season going.
And she will be back here every Tuesday that she allows when she's not traveling the planet. 10 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesdays. That's when we get to see Kacey D. Great to see you, my friend. Have a great call. We'll catch up with you next week.
Sounds good.
There goes Kacey D. So she's going to go and study now. Or maybe she's not until Thursday. But she's got conference calls. She's got things. She's got people. And we're blessed to have her here on Tuesdays to break everything down for us when it comes to coaching, when it comes to Major League Soccer, and where she's going to be. So Christian Miles and Kacey D. That's the pairing this season. And so they're going to be in Houston at Shell Energy Stadium for Chicago Fire and for Houston Dynamo. And I mentioned Jason Shukuluk from Chicago because we got to see him with Fire 2 when we would have the Atlanta United 2 matches. And to see how prolific a scorer he was, he's got a great backstory. He's from Erie, Pennsylvania. And he would have to travel 2.5 hours when he was starting out. He'd have to travel 2.5 hours into the state of Ohio to actually get reps and get noticed and things like that. And so for him, it has been a lot of miles put together by his family. And it was, like I said, it was cool to see him completely and totally just dive in early. And it was really interesting to see how he has evolved over time. And so here's, and this is from Zach Lowy's story on Jason Shukuluk. So every Monday and Wednesday, he's in Erie, Pennsylvania. And so short of the Seawolves and the Commodores in NPSL, you had like amateur hockey and you had the NPSL. You really didn't have anything there in Erie, Pennsylvania. So obviously, if you don't have professional teams, then the youth organizations, especially in certain sports, may not necessarily be as built out as they would be in other places. So every Monday and Wednesday, Jason Shukuluk's mom picks him up from school, drives 2.5 hours south to Pittsburgh so he could play hockey, another 2.5 hours back. Every Tuesday and Thursday, they drive 2 hours west to go to Cleveland, where he played soccer. And so he goes and he shifts from playing hockey and soccer just to going to soccer. And so then he goes to the University of Akron, getting a Scholly where he majors in business. And so he was quoted in the article with Zach Lowy. He said, I wasn't just playing soccer, playing hockey pretty competitively, traveling to Pittsburgh to go and play hockey, traveling to Cleveland. And so he had to make a decision on what he wanted to do because his viewpoint and his family's viewpoint was you got to be all in on whatever you're going to do. You got to go give it all your attention and effort. And he picked soccer. And so he said being able to hang with older guys is a big challenge that I think a lot of younger players should strive to and push themselves to do. Because when the time comes, whether you play high school, college, or you're a professional, probably going to be playing against older guys or older girls. For me, that moment when I was starting to hang with and eventually succeed against the older kids is when I started thinking, okay, I want to try to be the best player that I possibly can be. I want to give this thing everything I've got. So, a junior year at Akron, 18 appearances, 17 starts. Led the Zips in goals with 9. So he was 9 plus 6. Led them in shots and shots on goal, 38 and 22. Second in game-winning goals, third in assists, first team All-MAC honoree status. 23, conference high 14 goals, 5 assists in 17 appearances. In addition to leading all Big East players in shots and points. And so then he goes from there to USL League 2. In 21, he goes to South Carolina United. Then he goes to Michigan and joins Flint City Bucks in 2023. And so he goes from Akron, Big East Offensive Player of the Year, second team All-America, first team Big East. One of 44 players to get an invite to the College Showcase in Phoenix. And 1 week after returning, he got picked by the Fire 35th overall in the draft. And so then he goes to MLS Next Pro. 3 plus 3 in 27 appearances in 24. one of the goals in the U.S. Open Cup in the 6-1 win over D.C. And then in Open Cup, it was Forward Madison. And then, he has to take the backseat role to David Paraba. Paraba won Golden Boot and Golden Ball, had 18 goals that season. And so he learned from David Paraba. Then Paraba moves on. And then managerial change. Talander out, Mike Matkovich in. And then he just completely just blows it up. So it was patience, had a couple of first-team games, took the Golden Boot Award, league-high 20 goals, 8 goals in the final 4 regular season matches of the campaign. And then he goes finalist for MLS Next Pro MVP, 4th player from Fire 2 to sign a first-team contract. It's 26 with options for 27 and 28. So Gutierrez once again goes to Chivas. And so then Jason Shukuluk signs a contract. So we've had the chance to see Shukuluk grow. And now that he's going to be a part of the first-team thoughts for Chicago Fire, that was why I wanted to bring Jason Shukuluk up a bit. And we'll catch up, by the way, next week we'll catch up with Max Anderson, the play-by-play voice of Chicago Fire, and we will get his thoughts on match week 1, and we'll get his thoughts in the overall about what's going on with Chicago Fire. But KCD and Christian Miles, they have Chicago Fire and Houston Dynamo, and we're going to obviously have KCD here every single week and find out what's going on in the world of her activities with Apple TV and Major League Soccer. And so it's always great to pick her brain and find out what's going on there. Okay. All right. Now let's get into all the other news and everything that we have going on. And we'll lay it all out for you, get you ready for today. We mentioned Champions League. Champions League is going to be fun for a couple of different reasons. Remember, this is where you start piecing things together, and you're going, okay, this is how it's all laid out. Now, once again, you're looking at two leg fixtures. Galatasaray and Juve is at 12:45 today. Galatasaray is an underdog at a plus 218. What will our boy Mauro Icardi do? Will he give another moment of brilliance, or we will continue to have to talk about him on the field instead of off the field like we do on SOT? Galatasaray plus 218 at home. 90-minute draws a plus 241. Juve is a plus 129. I'm leaning Galatasaray or the draw here. And like I said, take what I say with the veritable grain of salt, because I'm not very good at this. You know me, I'm always one to pick the draw more than anything else. So I'm leaning draw in Galatasaray in this one just because of Juve and where they are in the 3-2 madness that came from the weekend and all of that chaos, and you're having to turn around and play on a Tuesday in Turkey. So that's what Juve's got to do right now. And Juve, remember, Juve is in 5th after losing that game on the weekend to Inter 3-2. Inter is now 8 points clear. Juve is 15 points behind Inter, and they're a point behind Roma. And they're in the Europa League slot right now. But Atalanta's 4 points behind them. And Como is 5 points behind. Como could make their way into Conference League if they keep their heads screwed on straight. And it's going to be those 7, because unless something happens, 8th and below, forget it. 8th is Bologna. They're at 33 points. They won the last time out to snap a 4-game losing streak. But right now, and you have 33. So you've got 8th to 14th separated by 6 points. And then you have the relegation fight. You have 3 teams at 24. Fiorentina's at 21. Pisa and Verona are both at 15. But you look at things right now with Juve. And Juve gets Como this weekend. What's the 21st? Saturday. So you're going from losing a 3-2 match that had chaos personified to having to travel to Istanbul, Turkey, and then come back to take on Como at home on Saturday. So you've got that to deal with. 3 matches in a week. You go from a 3-2 loss when a card was given and it shouldn't, and all the chaos that's attached to that, where now a referee has been told to stay at home because apparently there are threats that are being made on social media, but the AIA, basically the officials' version of pro in Italy, they're like, dude, stay home. So the center ref in that match has had death threats, and his family. And Italy's version of pro is like, stay home. Stay home. So you have a match that had all of that, and you lose, and you have to go to Istanbul, Turkey to take on Galatasaray before you have to come back and take on Como at home this weekend. Says Fabregas, he is going to be short for Como. That's all I'm saying. Somebody's going to be chasing after him. Absolutely safe. So that's what Juve is looking at right now. That's why I'm thinking that as you look at this one, I'm leaning draw. Wouldn't I be surprised if something happened with Galatasaray and they end up getting a Duke? And then the 3 o'clockers. Benfica and Real Madrid. And how are you doing? Thankfully, and it should have been just the easiest thing in the world, just lay this all out to where you were working, that's your bracket, instead of the weighted, could be either ors. Benfica, Real Madrid, 3 o'clock. And in that matchup, obviously Benfica's a dog, no shock. Plus 212, draws a plus 266. Real Madrid is a plus 122. So you're looking at that particular matchup and all of the juicy irony that's attached. First legs in the knockouts, and you end up with Jose Mourinho against Real Madrid. First and foremost, I'm taking the under. This one is going to, if Jose Mourinho has his way, it is going to be something that is going to frustrate Real Madrid. And Jose Mourinho is already in his minus ones. Jose Mourinho is discussing Real Madrid, and he's flapping the gums. He is flapping the gums. Adriano Garcia at the 4-letter. Jose Mourinho called Real Madrid a wounded king and doesn't think it will take a miracle to stun them in Champions League. Remember, they beat him 4-2, final round of league phase to get in. And then that meant that Real Madrid got dropped out of the top 8. So you've got that coming into this matchup, meeting in Lisbon, first round of the knockouts. They are wounded. And a wounded king is dangerous. We will play the first leg with our heads, with ambition and confidence. We know what we did to the kings of the Champions League. Okay? Translation to me, he ain't going to play a whole lot of offense. Quote, I don't think it takes a miracle for Benfica to eliminate Real Madrid. I think we need to be at our highest level. I don't even say high, I mean maximum. Almost bordering on perfection, which does not exist, but not a miracle. Real Madrid's Real Madrid. With history, knowledge, ambition. The only comparable thing is that we are two giants. Beyond that, there's nothing else. But football has this power, and we can win. Remember how it happened last time. Remember what went down to get us almost to this place. But remember the last time these two teams got together, courtesy of our friends at Paramount Plus and UEFA.
Ornes hangs it up. The goalkeeper's there! Oh my goodness gracious me! This is unbelievable! A diving header from Trubin! Jose Mourinho is back to haunt his former club! He's achieved some incredible things in his career, but even he hasn't seen anything like this! That goal means that Benfica are going to head into the top 24. And the stark reality for Real Madrid is that on an awful evening, they're out of the top 8. Good luck to anybody writing a match report on this one.
Uh-huh. Yeah, good luck trying to write a match report on that one. But yes, you had the game winner of game winners from Anatoly Trubin, Mourinho in the T-1, said Trubin won't be in the attack this time. Vinicius Jr. admits that Jose Mourinho changed the club's history a little during his 3 seasons in Real Madrid from 2010 to 2013. Mourinho continued, I don't want to feed stories that don't exist. The only thing that exists is that I have 1 year left on my contract with Benfica. It's a special contract as it was signed during the club's presidential election process. It has a clause that can easily be broken by me or Benfica. There's 0 with Real Madrid. I would love to eliminate Real Madrid, but I would love for Alvaro, meaning Arbeloa, to win La Liga and to remain at Madrid for many years. He's very capable, has a lot of Madridista in him, and has the personality to coach Real Madrid, which is not for everyone. In his time there, Mourinho, La Liga, Copa del Rey, Spanish Supercopa. Quote, I gave everything to Real Madrid, everything I had. I've done good and bad things, but I gave my all, and that's it. When a professional leaves a club with that feeling, there ends up being a lifetime connection. I left 12 years ago. I always had the feeling and the affection is there. I expect tomorrow, this is obviously yesterday at the -1, that Real Madrid is the main contender to win the Champions League. Beating Real Madrid once is very difficult. Beating them twice is much harder. Winning 3 times or even in a knockout tie is even more difficult. Even more important is their motivation to win the Champions League, not to eliminate Benfica. That's their objective. And that's their greatest strength for this match. For our part, we won in our previous meeting, and we know why. We know that the match won't be a repeat, that they've evolved significantly as a team in a short time. What I ask of my players is to play with the joy of those that deserve to be here, and they deserve to be here. Perhaps it's better to be here against the great Real Madrid than against the lower-level team. Return fixture is in 8 days' time at the Bernabeu. Quote, we'll enjoy tomorrow's match. We hope for a result that leaves us with a good feeling. Then we'll go to Madrid to compete, and we'll go there with joy and without pressure. So that is what it is looking like in that one with the wounded king. The wounded king. A wounded king in Real Madrid, which is crazy. But, I mean, that's what you do. I mean, you sit there and you play up the opposition. Hey, man, you know, if you think that you need to have the favorite dial it back, you want to put them on a pedestal. I don't know, it's going to be tough. We're the underdog going into this one. We're going to give it our best. And so you undersell it. Or, as in this case, you beat them last time to knock them out of the top 8 to get you into the tournament and into the knockouts itself. And you dial it up. We beat you once. We know we're going to have to play perfect, but we're gonna come at you with our best. It's not complete and total cockiness. It's the understanding of they're a wounded king. See, now that he starts with that, and then he kind of dials it back. They're a wounded king, and then he kind of settles into this idea of we've got to do our best. Wounded king is dangerous. So a wounded king is what you're looking at with Benfica and Real Madrid. Dortmund hosting Atalanta at a plus 114. Draws a plus 249. It just changed as I was staring at it. Atalanta to win is at a plus 236. And once again, this is a composite courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. So Dortmund's got injuries. And so what does that look like at the back? Can Atalanta take advantage? And then Monaco is hosting PSG. PSG got thumped on the weekend, so they're probably going to come into this one pretty mad at a minus 222. Monaco's a plus 555, and your 90-minute draws a plus 388. Just to give you an idea about what Ligue 1 is right now. Everybody's sitting there wondering about, PSG, long live the king, here come the king. But right now, it's Lens. Lens has won 3 in a row, 4 or 5 through match week 22, and they have a 1-point lead over PSG. PSG lost to Rennes on the weekend. 3-1. And we last night went through the post-match sound from Dembele, and Luis Enrique wasn't having it. And so you have a 3-1 loss by PSG at Rennes, bump them out of the top place in the standings, and then they get ready, and the schedule makers certainly kept European championships in mind for PSG, because on Saturday they take on Metz at home, and Metz is the last team in the table. So it's going to be an easier road to focus on coming out of the big loss to Rennes for PSG in this situation, going up against Monaco. Monaco is 8th in Ligue 1 right now. They are 20 points behind PSG with a record of 9-4-9. They, however, have not lost in their last 4 in league competition. How does it shape up tonight? I think PSG takes care of business. But I think that you're looking at once again, you're looking at an angry PSG going into that matchup against Monaco. And you're just, if I'm Monaco, my head is down, and I'm literally like this. My head is down. Juve is going to come in pissed, but the schedule makers in Serie A have not been as kind. That's why I think Galatasaray could get that result. So that's kind of where I'm hanging with this. I think most of the time it's going to be your favorites. I think Benfica and Real Madrid, I ain't touching that one. Ain't touching it. Not touching Juve and Galatasaray because of what I think could happen in Turkey. Dortmund, I think, should take care of business. PSG should take care of business in the first of these 2 legs. So Galatasaray, Juve from Turkey, 12:45 start. Everybody else at 3 o'clock. And it's on multiple networks all over the place. And you can find out what's going on, checking out wherever you want to check them out. So it'll be an interesting day for day 1 of your knockouts, your back-to-backs, your first legs in Champions League. Mikel Arteta, according to James Ollie over at the 4-letter, it says that Arsenal is assessing their warm-up routines after 4 players got fitness scares just before matches. And Arteta even is thinking about maybe scrapping the pregame warm-up routines entirely. Calafiori was injured Sunday, withdrawn minutes before kickoff, replaced by Miles Lewis-Skelly in the game against Wigan. Calafiore was also sidelined with a muscular problem a month earlier in the campaign, breaking down in the warm-up against Brighton. Saka didn't play against Leeds. Saliba felt an injury against Liverpool and back in August, started the game and was taken off after 5 minutes. And so, yeah, Arteta said, yes, we're looking into it. He says, I can feel it in my body. I'm more aware of it. When I'm in the office and the moment I hear my door, somebody steps in, I'm like, no, please. Because it is a moment that is very tricky. When you chance Ricci for Bukayo, you have to change a lot of things within that game plan, positions, a lot of things that are different. You've got 2 minutes to do that. Makes you a better coach because you have to be what ifs. And there are more and more what ifs just before the game than a lot during the game, so you need to be more prepared. To change the pregame warm-up, he admits it's tricky. Really good area to have a look. At halftime, we go and sit for almost 15 minutes, then go full gas in the second half. Maybe it's something to think about. Calafiore and Ben White expected to be made available for the trip to Wolves. Kai Havertz may recover in time, but Ødegaard is going to miss with Arsenal. Quoting Arteta, very hopeful he'll be able to face Spurs on Sunday. So that's your notes about warm-ups. So warm-ups not necessarily something that you kind of hang your hat on right now if you're Arsenal. So you got to keep an eye on warm-ups. Keep an eye on warm-ups with Arsenal. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. The trending rumors part. Manchester United, according to the Mirror, considering a shock move for Alexis. Drawing up a list of potential midfield options for the summer transfer window, keeping tabs on Alexis's future with speculation increasing. He could leave in the summer, although signing him would be a big task. Sources tell the four-letter Manchester United have expressed an interest in Adam Wharton at Crystal Palace, Brighton's Carlos Baleba, Forest's Elliot Anderson. Liverpool view Bayern Munich winger Michael Olise as the closest thing to a perfect replacement to Mo Salah, according to Team Talk. Even so, Bayern are going to shut down the idea of a departure of Olise, who is also in no rush to return to the Premier League, preparing to open talks about a new deal, despite his deal running through 29. The list for replacements of Olise as an idea: RB Leipzig's Jean Diomande, Athletic Club's Nico Williams, PSG's Desiree Doué, and Bradley Barcola. City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Real Madrid, and Barca also interested in Olise, but his transfer could cost over €100 million. Arsenal have been told Athletic Club's Nico Williams considering a transfer away from the team this summer. Team Talk again. 23-year-old's release clause in the region of €100 million. Barcelona, Arsenal being the two clubs that appeal to him the most. Chelsea, Liverpool, United, PSG, and Bayern have also been informed that he could be available by intermediaries, in quotes. Juve is going to speak to Marcus Senesi's agent again to try to get an agreement to sign the center back as a free when his time with Bournemouth expires in the summer. Nicola Schira with that report. Juve working to overtake Borussia Dortmund, Barca, Atleti, Brighton, Palace, and United to get Marcus Senesi. United is also going to keep an eye on Middlesbrough's Hayden Hackney as they work on their midfield ahead of the summer transfer window. Middlesbrough, according to ESPN, resolute in January to see off interest from Forest and Spurs, but there is a belief that Hackney will be playing Premier League football next season, whether that's due to a promotion or a transfer, and his links to former Borough boss Michael Carrick, who is at Manchester United, could be the key to his future. Everton also keeping an eye on that. Rapid fire, and I do have one note on Spurs before we get out of here. Arsenal hold an edge over Spurs in their efforts to sign Leon Goretzka from Bayern Munich as a free this summer. Liverpool considering reigniting their interest in Anthony Gordon in case Mo Salah leaves. Football Insider. Nico Jackson set to return to Chelsea this summer, as Bayern are unlikely to trigger the clause that would require them to sign him for a further £56.2 million on top of the £14.3 million loan fee. It's from the Times. Manchester City prefer to loan out James Trafford than let the keeper currently leave. Leeds, Villa, Newcastle interested. Arsenal will be willing to let Calafiore leave in the summer amid growing concerns about his injury record, according to Football Insider. European and Saudi Pro League sides waiting to move for Hakan Calhanoglu if Inter can't reach an agreement to extend his deal. That's from Nicola Schira. Mark Casado, plenty of interest there, but the midfielder and Barca will make the final decision on whether he moves. Stuttgart have submitted a concrete offer, according to Florian Plettenberg at Sky Germany, for Grisha Promel as a free agent in the summer. Hoffenheim keen to extend the midfielder's contract amid interest from Leverkusen, Eintracht Frankfurt, and Wolfsburg. St. Louis City, keep an eye on this one, finalizing a deal to sign Venezuela forward Sergio Cordova on loan from Young Boys with an option to make the deal permanent. And that is from our friend Tommy Scoops. So what else is going on in the Bogert universe? Because we are getting that close to, once again, the beginning of the regular season. Is there anything else on his radar? And it looks like the answer to that is not at the moment. So outside of the Sergio Cordova deal, it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of noise going on. Cordova previously played for Vancouver and RSL in MLS, 19 caps for Venezuela. So that seems to be the last one on the board for the moment when it comes to players transferring into Major League Soccer. And we'll keep an eye on that. Did you see this? From the Telegraph, from Matt Law, Tottenham face a catastrophic cost of relegation and no European football. It's an exclusive from Matt. Commercial partners are already reviewing contracts with the club, and I still do not know how you don't have a corporate sponsor for that stadium. And that's part of it, too. Facing a financial hit to the club's sponsorship deals that experts claim will run into the tens of millions, regardless of whether they're relegated. So if they stay up, it could end them hard. If they're relegated, it could be a lot worse. Matt Law writing that the Telegraph understands at least one of Tottenham's long-standing, most prominent sponsorship deals due to expire at the end of the season. Doubts as to whether the company will renew and on what terms. Also believe that a number of Spurs partnership deals include lucrative bonuses based on European qualification. And it looks like that's not going to happen. Also, it's claimed Spurs have relegation, renegotiation, and termination clauses in their contracts, which would leave a massive financial hole for the club. $1 billion stadium, and they don't have a naming rights deal. 5 points above the relegation zone, you bring in Igor Tudor since you've sacked Thomas Frank. Spurs is at 29 points. West Ham, who's won 3 of 4, is at 24. Forest is the meat in that sandwich. They're at 27. Forest has only lost once in their last 5, but they've also only won once in their last 5. Source with knowledge of Spurs sponsorship arrangements says, quote, some companies are seeing relegation as a realistic possibility, already reviewing their contracts. Already seems clear. Some deliverables, such as European qualification, will not be feasible, but the biggest fear is relegation, end quote. Obviously, Spurs said nothing, and we're going to volunteer nothing about that. You lose all your big guns, and that's currently where you are. Spurs official kit partners Nike, the deal runs through 2033, thought to be worth about £30 million a year. Global principal partner front of shirt is AIA, worth £40 million a year. AIA is going to stay front of shirt sponsor until the end of next year. But after next season, July of 27, they're going to be the global training partner, brand only featuring on the club's training kit until 2032. So that's only 10 to 15 million pounds a year instead of 40. Yet to make any announcement over a new global principal partner and front of shirt sponsor from July of 27 onwards, experts predicting they may struggle to match the AIA deal unless the current situation improves. Adidas could terminate their deal with Manchester United, 1 full season's notice of reducing payments by half in case you get relegated. Also reported that failure to qualify for Champions League for 2 successive years meant United had to pay Adidas £10 million. Spurs' last set of accounts up to June of 24, club did have a £3 million increase in earnings and from sponsorship revenue. But then there's also the category of principal risks and uncertainties in quotation marks. Terminated the contract of Ineos. After alleging payments had not been made, Ineos paid Spurs to end the lawsuit. And the deal with Infinix is raising eyebrows. The multi-year partnership was announced last week with the online trading platform. company was fined last year just under £100,000 by the Financial Conduct Authority for failing to submit over 46,000 transactions reports. And Infinox was named in a BBC investigative documentary 5 years ago named Scamland, which alleged more than 1,000 people were duped out of cash, and the individual made investments through Infinox. Infinox obviously asked for a comment, and Spurs said due diligence will happen on all high value contracts. And the fan tokens that they launched in September of 23, after 2.5 years, they started at $2 each. They're now down to 20 cents on Monday afternoon. So that is where Spurs currently are. I think it's safe to say that they're in a world of hurt. And if they are relegated, whole doctor. Yeah, keep an eye on that one going forward. Let me peruse the other papers to see what other news we might have been missing here before we are done on a Tuesday and coming back on Wednesday. Apparently, Vitor Pereira's had his first press conference as the fourth manager for Nottingham Forest this year, and insists that he shares trust with the emotional Evangelinas Marinakis. Premier League boosted by a 25% rise in the South American rights deal, £450 million with ESPN. So another boost in revenue streams for the Premier League. Bully for the Premier League. And we mentioned the officials that are taking the time off, one being told to stay at home after death threats, and Michael Kavanagh is told to stand down along with his number 1 AR. His number 2 AR is still going to be active this weekend in the Premier League. Tudor, in his first presser, says no time for excuses, and I won't play for draws. So, you got that. Hang on to that one. Manchester United denied any contact with Jurgen Klopp's agent after he said the club made an inquiry about the German taking over at Old Trafford. Transfermarkt published yesterday claims both United and Chelsea approached Klopp's reps at some point after he left Liverpool. Chelsea deny making any contact. Mark Kasicki, who also said Klopp could have managed England, added, quote, even Chelsea and Manchester United inquired, although Jurgen had clearly stated he would not coach any other club in England. These inquiries keep coming. He's extremely happy with what he's achieved, and it's still wonderful to go down in history as one of the few coaches who only managed 3 clubs and were never fired. Bukayo Saka signed a new-year deal with Arsenal, keeping him there till 2031. It was supposed to expire in 2027. And according to Daniel Kahn at Sky, Manchester United are not and will not renegotiate with Barcelona over the option fee for Marcus Rashford for his loan move to become permanent. Barca wants to pay less than the current option, which stands at £26 million or 30 million euro. Sky understands that is not the case from United's point of view. Situation remains unchanged. 10 goals, 34 comps, all comps this season. Ivan Toney's left the door open for a return to the Premier League, currently as striker at Al-Ahly. A year and a half ago, it was a £40 million move to go from Brentford to Al-Ahly, and he finished second to Cristiano Ronaldo in the Golden Boot last year. Al-Ahly won Asian Champions League before winning in the Saudi Super Cup 30 times, all comps in his debut season in Saudi Arabia. So he said never say never, but, that's kind of where he is. So Vitor Pereira is in the door, and he is starting at Forest, and Tudor is in at Spurs, and I don't know why people are saying Tudor is a short-term hire, and so people are talking about what it could take for him to be long-term, and that's really not a part of the plan as far as we've heard. So you've got that going on. So once again, remember today, it was an opportunity to catch up on Atlanta United, a couple of transfer reports that are out there, and we'll keep an eye on that. Fafa Pico is in for Atlanta United. So you've got a roster right now of 26, trying to figure out what it's going to look like come the weekend. Maddie and Jason are up at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground, Keep an eye out for Training Ground Dispatch today. Keep an eye out for it also later in the week with all the reports and interviews that we're going to have up there. And so keep an eye out for all of that. Tonight, 8 o'clock, Atlanta Soccer Tonight, the 2-hour earlier in the evening showcase previewing Atlanta United. And it'll be Maddie, Jason, Jarrett, Abe, Mike, and me. An interview with Chris Henderson as a part of it. And you'll also hear from a couple of players on the back line, and that'll be a part of the show tonight, 8 to 10 at 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Once again, tomorrow, Jess Charman's going to bat leadoff. She's going to talk about St. Louis City and Charlotte. Will Pelagic, we're catching up with him. He's going to talk about Charlotte and St. Louis City, in addition to Charlotte coming out of 25 and heading into 26. That'll be tomorrow. Hopefully catching up with Dylan Butler as well. And we got Red Clay at noon tomorrow. And it's GMC Prep, Jeff Davis and Johns Creek, St. Pius and Brookwood tomorrow afternoon and evening at the Brookwood Community Stadium. Maddie, Jason, and I will be there for that. That is a very, very busy Wednesday. Thursday, hope to have a special guest coming in. Lucas Panzica, I think, is going to be joining us batting leadoff to talk Nashville, especially after CONCACAF tonight. And then we'll catch up on Atlanta Amputee Soccer, Nino and Nico, and that is Thursday. Friday is the Show of Chaos that leads us into Dalton and Johnson Gainesville on the network at Johnson Gainesville up at the Castle on Friday night. And then it's match day, people. 3:30, 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app with your pregame and kickoff probably about 4:55. So we'll see what happens there. And that's your Wednesday. Thanks to KCD. Thanks to Alex Aldaz. Thanks to U.S. Soccer for making that happen, especially after coming back from St. Vincent and the Grenadines and qualifying for the World Cup in the U17s in Qatar in November. So that's another cool interview that we were able to do. And thanks once again to our friends at U.S. Soccer for that. It's another go-round of SDH AM. Back at it again later tonight. 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app. Back at it again here, a little less than 22 hours. Almost made it. And since it is the end of the show, Mucha Platiel, play it safe. Time to do this. We'll be back at it tonight. 92.9 The Game for the preview of Atlanta United in 2026. Mucha Platiel, play it safe. Enjoy. We'll see you in a bit.